Hello, hello, testing. 1 second to join. Okay.
Hey, Devin.
Hi, I'm just trying to get Kelly on.
Yes.
Let me see. 1 second. Um, hmm.
Did she send a request?
I did. Are you able to do it on your end? Or is it
No,
only?
no. She has to hit once she has to hit that she wants to join, and then
Okay.
yeah.
Let me see. This one. Hmm. Okay, hello to everyone coming in. I'm just trying to add Kelly to this. Give me 1 second. Um, oh,
There she
okay, I
is.
see she's in the room. Let me see.
Yes. She just has to send a request now to join.
Okay. Add. Okay, I think I did something right. Okay.
You saw her request to join?
Yeah, I just put it, so she should accept it.
Okay.
Go to the join. Okay. We might have to get started and see. I'll go ahead and get started, and then when we're doing introductions, I'll still try to troubleshoot here. Welcome everyone to Ask a Sexologist Q&A hour with me, Wayne here, and hopefully Kelly in a few. We're really excited. This is our first go at this, but I felt that we have an amazing team that has a lot of amazing offerings that needs to be shared with the world. So I'm Devin. I'm a sex therapist here at Last. I've been doing this work and honored to do so for about 2 years now. Some of my specialties include gender identity issues, sex worker advocacy and support, and now psychedelic integration, and utilizing that within the space of sexuality. And I'll give it to you now, Wayne, to kind of just introduce yourself and tell folks what you offer here at
Yes.
Last.
Hi. My name is Wayne. I work over here at Last as well. I'm a coach at Last. I specialize in non-monogamous relationships, sex, and intimacy. I definitely enjoy working with people of color. I know that's such a marginalized group within an already marginalized group, but yes, I've been doing this. I've been coaching now for about 2 years, been in a non-monogamous relationship for approximately 20 years, so have a lot of lived experience, and I'm enjoying helping people. Yes.
Oh, awesome. And I just see here, I'm gonna keep trying to try Kelly. So we're gonna open up the floor to whatever questions that y'all have. I know we're concluding summer, so maybe some situations have left y'all, in a state of curiosity. Maybe you were interested in sex therapy or sex coaching and weren't really sure of what that would look like for you and which ways you could be healed in this realm. I'll kind of start off with one of the questions I get most frequently, and that's, what's the difference between a sex therapist and a sex coach? I could kind of speak to my end, and then Wayne, feel free to jump in, of course. But sex therapy is kind of dealing with the cognitions and the thought process of things. A lot of whatever thought patterns, guilt and shame around sex, whatever beliefs are built around sexuality and relationships and intimacy, and really challenging that. Wayne, kind of what is your offering, how that differs from my approach?
Right. So I would say sex coaching is more of like a actionable action type of. It's different from therapy. Not really, like, for instance, like coaches, we can be more interactive. We can attend events and parties that we don't have the same ethical issues that therapists may run into when working with a client. So we can be more hands-on. But yes, it's more about actionable action, like trying to create a goal and get to that goal, and giving homework or actions to get to that goal.
Yes, and I've actually in-house between therapist and coach given referrals out. Like if somebody has performance anxiety or is just nervous about going to a pleasure party or sex party alone, or it's their first time, I might pair them with the coach to maybe, buddy up or, be support for them in those type of settings. So I really like the action piece of it because, sex and sexuality has a lot of action to it. So I'm really glad that that's kind of where we go hands in hand and offer support there. Another big question, especially for a lot of, my couples, is venturing off, and, you could really answer this, into the world of non-monogamy and, what makes a qualified candidate, if that's a thing, between two partners to start exploring that, or, what advice would you give in starting to go into that realm?
So I would tell somebody, like, if you're curious about going into non-monogamy, I would say do your homework first and foremost. Don't just jump in head first, because you'll run into a lot of things that probably are unexpected. And I know it sounds exciting and you're just like, yes, let's just go do it. I think that you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you did that. I know it may feel like it's taken away from the excitement, but it makes the actual exploration of it more exciting, because you get to enjoy it without as many bumps and ruptures. So do all the learning you can in the beginning, like podcasts, videos, possibly even talk to somebody, get support, through maybe a group or individual who can mentor, help you guys out, and just be curious. Yeah. So that would be my advice to any couple or people who are trying to join or enter into non-monogamy.
Oh, perfect. I couldn't have said that better myself. I'm going to open the floor up to some Q&A. I see we have 3 people here. Maybe somebody has some questions. Let me just pause here, and then still trying to get Kelly in too.
So Kelly can jump back out, and then she can jump back in if it didn't work, and then she can try requesting again, and then you can just...
Okay. I think it might have went through. View requests.
There she is.
All right. Yeah.
Kelly, you have to flip your phone, Kelly. You have to flip your phone.
Welcome, Kelly.
All right.
Hey, Kelly.
Hi. I listened to all that. That was all really awesome. And I'm glad you're opening it up to other folks. It looks like there are only a few other folks here, but let's hear what they have to say.
I'm going to start calling some people. Robert, welcome. If you have any questions, Tone Oliver, Tiffany, Toyen, anyone have questions? Hopefully I enabled the comments so I'm able to see.
People starting to come in now, starting to see names starting to roll up now.
Okay, y'all can see it too? Okay, good. It's not just me trying to
So
capture every. Okay.
maybe Kelly introduce herself.
Yes, Kelly,
Let
please.
them know who you are, Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulties at the beginning, but I'm Kelly. I've been at Last as a therapist. I don't know. Like time means nothing. This is either COVID. I was maybe 2019 or so. I joined 2018. Maybe I joined Last as a therapist, and Mo and I were super excited to start the other side where there were coaches, and we that. And I think we're kind of here to talk about the differences between being a sex coach or a sex therapist, because, you know, sex is a difficult thing for people to talk about, and, or even to, whether they're talking about it in a partnership or in a pod or just what they're going through on their own. They might look up like sex therapy or sex coach, whatever it is, and then they land at Last, right? And so they don't know where to go next. They don't know how to make a choice. They don't know how to make a decision. And so maybe that's something that people can be interested about, because I feel like that was sort of the topic of this conversation.
If I can jump on the back of that, I love what you said, because you brought up a good point, and I wanted to add on to it. So it made me think about the difference between sex coaching and sex therapy. So as we know, because we've had this conversation plenty of times, a lot of people come in for sex issues around a relationship. It's usually not even about the sex. It's about the emotional aspect of it. So it's all these other parts, right? So in trying to figure out if you want a coach around, if you want a therapist or a coach, if you're coming in to be a better, if you're trying to learn how to have sex in a different way or be more explorative around sex or perform whatever kind of thing, then you probably, like, a sex coach could work for you, you know. But if you're having issues around, like, engaging, you and your partner having difference in sex drives, or just in maybe having sex as not as much in your relationship, or if you're having possibly kind of pain with sex, that's more of a sex therapist kind of work than it is a coach. So just to kind of give a difference between the two.
And I love that that's kind of where this conversation is going, because even a lot of the clients will be surprised that sex isn't just tackled on early on. Like we probably go through a couple sessions before that even comes up, because, you know, maybe there's too much pressure in that. Maybe there's too much emphasis on it to the point where it's disabling or even paralyzing and leading to more issues and anxiety and, you know, ED and all those things. So I really like that we could, you know, normalize that although it's sex therapy and sex coaching, sometimes there's other factors that need to be, you know, taken care of or looked at or kind of dived into a bit more and unearthed before we go there. And that kind of leads me to the question of, you know, some clients will ask, you know, do I bring this up here? Am I doing sex therapy right? I don't know if y'all ran into that, but there is still some kind of disconnect of the traditional coaching and therapy spaces and kind of what we have to offer. And I found it's still a balancing act, but I'm interested in y'all's insight on that.
Yeah. Again, I think that we covered a lot of these. Me and Kelly talked about a lot of things. Like, for instance, like, I think that, for one, it's going to be difficult to talk about sex, and even in session, right, for a client, because they don't. What language do they feel comfortable using, and, you know, and how do they present these things, you know, in a way to not feel judged or like as if they're alone. And so again, just, you know, so that's what comes to my mind when I think about it. I'm sure Kelly has things to add as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a difficult topic for people to talk about, and there are a bunch of different ways. Maybe they're talking about the actual physical act of this physical engagement. Maybe for some people that may be where they're starting, and we don't know. For some people it may be, oh yeah, like we're great with having sex, but now we want to explore ethical non-monogamy, or now or kink, or now we're going to go in these other spaces. And so, you know, we have to meet people where they are, and be open and willing to hear wherever they're coming from, and kind of go from that point. So I feel like we all have the different things that we enjoy talking about, and that we are better at dealing with. But you know, when people come to talk with us, we have no idea where their level of comfort is, or where their expertise is, or their level of education is. We don't know. We just know that they sought us out for a reason. And the word is sex. Like, that's what it comes down to. And what does sex mean for people? Like, these are all things to explore.
And while people are typing their questions in the comment box, hopefully, another common frequently asked question I get is how I got into this field, how y'all got into sex therapy, sex coaching, if you're comfortable with sharing, because I think that one in itself kind of drives the framework in your approach and the way you operate and offer services. Oh, I
Will
will
you
start.
start?
I'm very transparent in letting people know that I, was in the sex work industry as a dominatrix many lives ago. And, growing up in the South and being exposed to that type of environment was really actually the most healthiest thing I could do. It was the first time I learned about consent. It's the first time I learned about speaking assertively and expressing my needs. It was the first time where I could, at least in that role, put on, play with masculine, feminine energy until it carried over into my everyday life. So once I was exposed to that, I'm like, oh, I wonder how this affects other people, bridging sexuality with mental health and, healing, and led me to become a sex therapist. So I believe so much in the work that I knew this was my purpose and calling, and I had to be in a space where I could do this for a living. I tried traditional therapy settings and interventions, and I just didn't fit it. It wasn't me. I thank God every day that I'm in a place and that I practice where I could show up authentically and heal authentically too. So that's my story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Is
said I
it
love it.
okay if I
Yes, go
hop in,
ahead.
Wayne? Yeah. You know, I think for me, when I went back to school a little bit, not late in life, but a little bit later, like second, third transformation of who I was. And I kind of went into it thinking that I wanted to work with kids in the coming out process, because I watched a lot of, I'm from the South as well. I'm Bible Belt, the whole, that I deal a lot with people that have a lot of religious trauma and a lot of shame and guilt around sex. I mean, forget about it if you're gay or if you're trans or whatever. Like, that just makes it even that much bigger in these settings, right? And so I really like this idea of working with kids in the coming out process, because it would blow families up to the point that I knew people that had been kicked out of their family for being gay, or not even trans. Like, back then, they weren't even talking about being trans. It was just being bi or being gay was getting you kind of kicked out of the family. I was like, oh my God, you can't really go out into the world with no sort of safety net or no sort of foundation or no support system or no community. But that's what I saw happen to some folks. I was like, I think it'd be really cool if you could get in at that ground level with people who were coming out and working with the family, so they're a little bit more in tune with each other before kids get to the point that they actually do leave the house, right? Do leave the nest. And that didn't stick. That's what got me to go to school and to start doing this. And one thing just sort of led to another. And here's where I am. But I still feel very much inspired by that concept of working with gay or trans or whatever it is. If it's just like sex, sexuality, gender, all of that, and it being this is just as part of who we are. We are, and we. This idea that's all of that, we are all of those things, and so that's kind of what got me here.
And it's such a big thing, because I can't tell how many times I get clients who say, oh, I had a therapist or a coach before, but they weren't sex positive, or they weren't LGBTQ allies, or they weren't, and it's so heartbreaking, because these spaces, safe spaces, is a buzzword right now. Can you truly say you're offering that if the clients are saying they don't feel comfortable with you, they don't feel seen by you? So I love stories like that, because it just creates another space for somebody who maybe never had that before. And, you know, of course, with the BIPOC, it's now becoming more normalized and destigmatized to get the help. And then, of course, with LGBTQIA communities, you know, it's all kind of coming together, and we're seeing more therapists and coaches look differently than the traditional model. And it's a really good time. So I'm glad you pioneered that, you know, way back when, and could kind of see how it's evolving to what it is today.
Yeah, but I mean, Devin, let me ask you this. I feel like a lot of people come like, oh, I have, or my husband or my wife or my partner or whatever, we have our therapist. We don't talk about sex. We're coming to you just to talk about sex. I'm like, wait, what? What? And that's a little mind blowing, right? And so the just being sex positive, because a lot of people will come and like, we actually don't need to talk about sex at all. We just need to know that you're sex positive, because we don't want you to deem something as bad or wrong or problematic, you know, just because this other thing
Yeah.
is happening. Do you
I just can't like, how do you not talk about, like, I personally, that's part of the healing. Mind, body, spirit, sex, like, that's part of it. So I hear that a lot too. Like, oh, we're coming for you for this specifically. And it's like, oh, so what does that even look like in the therapy room? Well, we're getting into sex. let's stop. I just can't understand.
Feel like things become pathologized that don't need to become pathologized. Like, let's say you've got some folks coming in that are polyamorous or do practice with ethical non-monogamy, and they're here to talk about the fact that they're fighting about X, Y, or Z. And I feel like it would be very easy for someone who wasn't sex positive to just say, well, it's because you're doing X, it's because you were non-monogamous, or it's because you're polyamorous. It's like, no, we're that, and we're okay with that, and this is the other thing. I don't even know if I'm going in the right direction, but I find that people do show up and they're saying, hey, we have our therapist. We
Yeah, and Wayne, do you kind of get those referral outs, or like receiving referrals of, oh, my, you know, therapist lens was way too monogamous, and on the opposite of it?
Sure, and again, you know, and I feel like, and sometimes it could be a conflicting message, right? You're getting from your therapist saying that, hey, you guys shouldn't be doing this, you know. So then it's almost like your client has to, and you're giving them different advice. So it's almost like your client has to choose, like, right? Because I feel like it comes to that point to where it's like, okay, like, which one, you know, what do you want? Like, what do you want to help at? Because I can help you with all these things instead of just this thing. And I think that now I've said this before. I wish that a lot of therapists, they can be allies, but I wish they would refer clients out to where, like, if I were to get a client that has depression or deals with a lot of anxiety, I would probably refer them out, because that's not my specialty. Because I'd be like, okay, cool, I'm probably not for you. I wouldn't take on a client that, you know, that I feel like, you know, I don't have enough information to work with that client. So I definitely have had that. I actually have clients now presently who are working with another therapist as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, so hopefully the more referral out will be more normalized with, you know, people who aren't within the scope. But yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's still emerging and, you know, happening right now, day by day. I still see more glimpses of, you know, people just seeking services here at last because their therapist just doesn't get it.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I just actually watched this podcast recently. It was a lot of well-known therapists who actually work in, you know, sex therapy, and they were just talking about how it's almost like therapists themselves who work in this industry, in this specialty, are almost ostracized. They don't get invited to certain speakings. They don't have certain funding around certain things because it's still kind of taboo, right? And so when I saw that, I was like, oh wow, these are people who are known, and they're struggling, and they're facing this. So I can only imagine, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, just the word sex is stigmatized. Like, it can still be flagged or banned in certain social media platforms, right? And so it's, we
Definitely.
have our work cut out for us, for sure. And there's definitely a need for it.
I see some comments here. Thank you, Zandra. I see that Pleasure Psych joined. Pleasure Psych is our partner coaching, sex coaching program. So please follow or look into that if you're interested. I think when you're a graduate of that, no?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I was
Oh,
actually the first graduate of
Very
it.
first
Yes, yes, I went through the course, and that's how I became a certified coach, because I went through the course. Because and so for me, like how I got into it was me and my wife have been married for 20 years, and we've been non-monogamous from the beginning, and so we kind of we came from the swing world. So it's so funny because all three of us have a different background of where we came from, right? So right, we came from the swing world, and what we noticed, we saw a lot of things that were problematic within the lifestyle, and so and we didn't have any help or any guidance either when we were going through. There was no YouTube and Facebook. I mean, sorry, there was no YouTube and TikTok and therapists readily available to help you out. And so we kind of had to go through it ourselves. And so Melissa actually went to school. And she's a therapist. Well, people out there who don't know, she's a therapist now. And so she's working with the same demographic that I'm working with. And so then I decided that I want to do the same thing because we didn't have the help. And so we see how people can benefit from our experiences that we had, and how we can help them work through some of the things that we know is very common and very familiar, that they may feel like, oh, this is this huge thing I'm dealing with. It's like, oh, no, it's really not as big as you may think it is. It's just, let's reframe it and look at it this way. And it's been so helpful.
Yeah. Reframing years, like eons and eons and eons of conditioning that you can only show up like this in a relationship.
Yes, yes.
I think there is a very much deep need for this work, especially, Kelly and myself coming from the South, where death do you part, and like I rather get cheated on and turn my head to a lot of things than to divorce or look up other ways to be in a relationship. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean I forgot to ask you to share how you got into it. I know you gave a glimpse of it.
Totally.
Sorry, we went.
Yeah, we kind of went on a tangent.
Honestly, I think this work is, so, like you said, is so needed because it can be so healing and transformative for so many people who feel like they've hit a wall and can't go anymore. It's like, if you got to that point, like maybe shift, where you're looking at, and maybe go somewhere else, and to somebody who may have some experiences that could really help you and give you a different perspective on how to navigate through these certain, like, whatever it comes up in your relationship, whatever ruptures may come up, right? We people out here who can help you for sure.
There's people out here that can help you.
Yes.
Wayne, what are the things as a coach that you're hearing people come to you, like either questions or things they consider problems, or what do you?
So
what do
a
you
lot
do
of times,
right now?
so because I work with a lot of non-monogamous folks, a lot of things that I'm starting to recognize is that a lot of I realize I feel like a lot of men are struggling right now with this, being in a space of their wife enjoying the same benefits from non-monogamy that they are, right? And I understand why. I get it, especially from the patriarchal society, again, conditioning and all so forth and everything. And so I understand, I get it. So and what I'm learning is that it's sometimes it's just as easy as another man saying that, like, it's okay, like, in giving permission to be okay with it, and not feel like it's, like you're this not good guy. I mean, you're a lower guy because you're in a relationship that is open to your wife enjoying the same benefits you do from non-monogamy.
And is that insecurity or just conditioning, or
all of
what?
the above? I feel as though it's ego, conditioning. Yes, all of that. Yes.
And how powerful to just lean into that instead of,
my God. Oh my gosh, it's so powerful. Again, I know it would sound counterproductive to a lot of men to let go of those things, but in letting go of those things, you get to grow so much more. It's so much more out there than just that small lens that you are viewing the world through, right? So when you take those glasses off and you get to look and see how wide it really is, the spectrum is, you're like, oh my God, there's so many things out here that I can enjoy without having all of that pressure on me. With all the weight of everybody worrying about what everybody thinks of me and how they view me, right? Because they aren't in your relationship. It's you who live your life, and you should do what's best for you, what you feel good in, and kind of trying to drown out all the noise of all the other people that aren't probably successful as successful they want to be in their own relationships, you know. So yeah.
And I've seen the same liberation of people who come in with guilt and shame around sex, or religious trauma around sex. It's that same freeing feeling of, not caring, even with the inner thoughts and dialogue of going against that, or not really letting it dictate your access to pleasure, no matter what that looks like, intimacy, romantically, sexually, whatever. So I think that's kind of like the common theme around, no matter what people and clients are coming with, couples, individuals, is that they need that permission, that invitation. Just even asking, what if we look at it like this?
Yeah.
That alone could do.
That's why I love pleasure's your birthright. I love that. We don't think about that enough, like truly what that means. Like we deny ourselves of pleasure because of shame and guilt and conditioning. And we don't allow ourselves to be our authentic selves and live in our authentic lives because of all these things. So we would deny ourselves pleasure to save face.
Yes. Shout out to Mo. That's who taught me that. And I've been living by it ever since. But yeah, you're right. It is my birthright.
Yes.
It can't be taken away. It can't be manipulated. It can't be. And, I pass that down to clients and those who seek resolution and revival.
Yeah.
Just is very much earth shattering. Okay. So let me open the floor to questions.
Yeah, we can't see the questions.
Yeah,
we can't
it's
see
a lot of
if
waving. I think they like us. But if not, just whatever common, frequently asked things maybe in consults that y'all just recognized became a theme. Mo, people from Pleasure Psych, other people of Last, if y'all are on, Melissa, I see you. Feel free to ask anything or offer any insight.
Another thing that I've learned as well is that I've come across a lot of women in sessions that are afraid to disclose certain things or around their desires, whatever, within a relationship because they're worried about how they'll be viewed within their own relationship. Again, we know about oppression and repressing out women's sexuality within themselves because of society, and so that's another thing. Like, oh wow, like to help the male in the relationship to learn how to help try to create a safe space for her to feel comfortable enough to even begin to talk about her desires and wants and needs is huge in itself.
Do you ever find it that the men are in the seat of that, or is it always traditionally kind of the woman having that inability to express or guilt or shame around doing it?
So I think it's both ways. I think that a lot of times that, I found that men tend to do it, I think I don't want to generalize men and women. All people do it. We all do this thing. We all do this thing to where we want to protect each other's feelings. So we don't want to say the thing that we want or ask for the thing we want because we don't want to hurt our partner. We don't want them to feel some kind of way. But and maybe again, I'm not a woman, so I don't know. But because of the history of this country and how things are, I would think that it would be possibly a little bit harder because men can speak more freely about sex and they can engage in promiscuous sex easier without being deemed anything. But if a woman did it, it would be, become a lot harder for her. So I would feel like it would be harder for her to actually, even within the relationship in itself, to still speak freely sometimes.
Oh yeah, and I see the comment, the people pleasing. Really wanting to kind of accommodate to the needs of women.
Well, I mean, I think we're also talking about slut shaming here too.
I don't know what's allowed to be said or not be said.
Oh, I think we can say slut on here.
That's what you're talking about. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Devin, but I think that's kind of what we're talking about. Like women feel the need to kind of stay quiet about it, and there is a tendency for it to be more appropriate or more accepted for men than it is for women. Is that what you're getting at? Is that what you're trying to say?
Of course, heard of slut shaming, but I didn't think of it even within the own relationship dynamic, even if it's on a subconscious level. Like we never can admit that or say that, but there is the shame and there is the stigma of being a slut. And it could possibly be, or your fear of feeling that from your own partner. And especially that's a safe space where you're supposed to be able to explore. And but now that I'm thinking about it, a lot of my clients who come in as individuals say they're in these partnerships. Oh, I don't want to, try that. I don't, even to the point where they don't want to explore their sexuality, as far as, maybe I need to experiment some different things. And I'm like, wow, so you're willing to sacrifice that part of self in order to stay in this relationship? And of course, with support, no judgment, but it's really curious of all the ways in which you're willing to, hide or not be seen in order to be in this type of couple dynamic.
I remember Mo talking about like we talked about, like, everything is assumed monogamy. So with monogamous relationship, we have to let things go, right? Because that's what they tell us. Like, oh, when you get married, you have to let that go. You have to let that part of you go. You can't, when you're married, you don't do that anymore. And that's I believe that's such bad advice.
Yeah.
Because now you have to shut parts of yourself off within your relationship. So now you aren't even your full self within the relationship that you're in. So you're not even they're not even experiencing you as your full self. Yeah.
And then that leads to resentment and then show up in other ways. And yeah, that's just a slippery slope. And yeah, I see it as a trend, both in couples and individuals, and then group dynamics too, of a lot of hiding from self and turning a little bit too towards relationship.
Yeah, and that's what Wayne, like, that's how he's chosen to live his life, and that's how, like, this is what his expertise is in, right? Is non-monogamy or polyamory. And but that's not necessarily, if someone goes to a sex coach or a sex therapist, that's not necessarily what they're there for, or that anyone's pushing for that. So I don't want it to seem like there's an agenda for that, because that's not it. We're just saying, hey, we're open to whatever is good for you is what we're here
So
to
let me
help you
let me
figure
clear it
out.
up as well. I have monogamous clients. I actually have more monogamous clients than I do non-monogamous clients, and we do great work together. And no one's pushing any agenda on anybody. So yes, let's say that as well. Just yeah.
That's interesting, because people who are wanting to explore this, it's kind of a mind fuck, because if it were monogamy, it wouldn't be questioned, it wouldn't be, but when it's shifting into non-monogamy, it's, oh well, these are my concerns, and as if we're pushing something that is kind of, it of course is against societal norms, but human innate, there's a big debate, who knows what we're wired to do, what we have capacity to do. I know that's case by case. Yeah, I really don't like it a lot when people kind of shame or talk down on the non-monogamy just because maybe they don't understand it. Whereas, if somebody were I'm not bashing that or like having concerns about that, even though there's probably equal, if not more, concerns in that type of situation too. So yeah, still a lot of normalizing to do around it.
What I do think could be helpful is that because of the type of conversations that you have to have in consensual non-monogamous relationships, ethical non-monogamous relationships, you can that's definitely something that can be used in monogamous relationships, as well. It could be as a tool just to talk about like radical honesty, and things of such, because it's so helpful when in these relationships, just to have these very like me and Kelly talk about, these very front loading, unpacking, yes.
And we have a question from Shades of Non-Monogamy. Any suggestions on practical ways to connect with or develop our unique sexual expression?
I'll pass that to Kelly.
You take that. We know that came.
I actually love this question because, people's sexualities are unique, and that is kind of what gets lost when we're trying to come to sex therapy. Unfortunately, a lot of people learn about sex and sexuality through pornography or, negative views of sex, or like Kelly was saying, the church, religious culture where abstaining and all those things. So exploring within itself is a unique process alone because it's tailored for you. Like your exploration isn't going to look like the next person's. So that means trying on a lot of different things for size. And the first step, though, is developing that narrative. We talk about, negative beliefs and challenging those. Okay, what are we replacing it with? If I'm not going to be slut shamed or have guilt and shame around sex, what am I going to be? Liberated through sex, empowered, curious, I think it's a lot of reframing is first, and then using a lot of guided discovery either through coach, through therapist, through self, through partnership, through groups, whatever, kind of course, safely and with boundaries and checking in. But brief exposure therapy, just kind of seeing what lands, exposing yourself to different ideas, Q&As of people with challenging thoughts that you're maybe not used to, books, podcasts, like Wayne was saying earlier. You just got to kind of dive into it and see what lands and feels right for you. Thank you for that.
That was a great answer.
Do y'all have any response to it?
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can
Like, that was
follow
a
that
great
up.
response. Like, I
Well,
feel like you covered it all.
if y'all are comfortable with sharing, what is there a unique practice that you kind of tapped into, or that helped you along the way, or was it kind of trial and error there?
Well, I would speak for me, it was trial and error for sure. Like, it's just like a learning process. I learned the same way most people learn through, conversation with peers, which isn't the greatest advice. Pornography, and I never really had someone actually sit me down and we really have a deep dive into a conversation about sex, sexuality, how to even engage in sex. So it was all a learning process for me, trial and error. And luckily for me, I had partners who were very understanding and open and willing to us to learn together. So I got lucky in that way.
Okay. Anything, Kelly? You want me to go on?
No, I mean, go on, because I feel like I'm coming at it much more of like from a relationship standpoint, because I feel like a lot of times when people come in, it's so, this isn't the case all the time, but we kind of covered this at the beginning. It's much less about sex and much more about just the connection, the relationship. And I think that's kind of where my mind is. It's much less about the physical piece of it and just about the emotional connection and about being radically honest and vulnerable with each other. And I feel like that is the piece that I kind of, how you get clients, you tend to get the clients that you're supposed to have, and they stick with you the longest. And so I feel like that's kind of where I shine more with folks, is dealing with the connection that they have, and the safety and the honesty and the vulnerability. So yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about that.
Thank you, Kelly. We have another question from Pleasure Psychology, probably more so good towards Wayne. Where do I start if I want to try non-monogamy?
So I feel like I just answered the question earlier. So maybe I would love to hear what you would say to somebody, give a different perspective than what I had given earlier.
Oh,
because I want to just repeat myself. But yeah.
Yeah. I always ask, what is your intention for wanting to explore it? How did it come about? I'll be honest, a lot of couples it's our last shot at it, and we're gonna try this as a last resort. And I'm like, oh, I get that stuff. And I'm like, you're setting me up, but okay, we'll see. So yeah, getting really, what's the intention behind it? What do you hope to gain from it? Because I feel it's kind of a fad, not that I think it's going to come and go, but it's still very much, let me try this, and letting them know not everyone is a good candidate for it either.
Yes.
If you're looking, of course, it's going to heal, the jealousy, the anxious attachment. It's going to be a lot of good things and benefits if done so correctly. But, you still want to be mindful of what we're trying to get out of it, because not everybody makes it to the other side and it's healthy and, you know, it's a success story like with you, Wayne. Sometimes there's a dark side to it too. So I
Yes.
think the first step is being intentional, you know, what's the reason, what are the goals? And then of course the education.
Yeah.
What's the book? I'm sorry, The Ethical Slut or Not Ethical Slut, one of the books.
There's a
Book
book,
that everybody, oh, I
Ethical
read this
Slut.
book. And, you know, education is great, but what other readings are on it that's beyond the pop culture? What's really speaking to you and your situation and your dynamic specifically? So I get kind of, you know, a bit strict in the beginning, like, okay, you know, what are the intentions? What are we doing it for? Just because I do want it to succeed and I don't want it to be a last resort thing or, you know, a desperation effort. You know, I think there's candidates that qualify
Mhm.
that would be good for that type of partnership and some that maybe aren't.
Yes, I agree, and I actually get it. I ain't gonna lie, I get excited, you know, when clients come because I was like, ooh, because we get to explore, we get to play, we get to you know just gain new experiences and kind of like see. But yes, I definitely, like I said before, there's a lot of front loading in the beginning, just like educating ourselves, having a lot of conversations around it. You know, even possibly looking for some guidance before we
Yeah.
kind of do it. And yes, I agree with you. Like it's not advisable to jump into something because you're to try to fix your relationship because your relationship is not broken because of that. It's for other reasons as
Yeah.
we are. That. So let's go
Mhm.
fix those things first before we decide to do this. Yeah.
Absolutely. I get a lot of hearts and feedback, and Kelly left. I'm sure she'll be back. Um, and I saw another one. Okay. What should I do if I'm having difficulty relaxing during intimacy?
Good one. Yeah. I always say slow down. Like
Mhm.
slow things way down. Like like how can just figure out like how can we build up? Like maybe it starts off earlier in the day or maybe even in the moment that we start to feel that anxiety, we can kind of speak to it so we can address it, you know, and kind of like refocus or redirect to try to come at it a different way, you know, to try to figure out what it is, how is my body reacting to certain things, and so I can start to recognize that within myself. So in having these intimate moments, I can be like, ooh, I like this. I can kind of direct you and tell you, yeah,
Yeah, and here at last, we're big on the sensate focus. And for those who aren't, you know, aware of what it is, it's literally breaking it down step by step. Like, you know, sex is the last. I mean, we're soul gazing, we're eye gazing, we're, you know, using gentle touch, we're kissing, we're, you know, like you're saying, that build up.
yeah,
And 5 steps of exhales through each and every step is the only way to really relax. I think sex is very performative nowadays, and you know, we want to heighten, you know, desire, whatever, like we see in movies, but that may not be good for your nervous system exactly. Or that might not be good for achieving your goals of engaging, you know, in sexual practices. So, yeah, I agree. Just slow down, breathe. Me personally, I enjoy playfulness in it. I enjoy, you know, not feeling like nervous or, you know, even though that still happens sometimes, but also reflecting in and asking yourself, okay, why do I feel this way? Does this partner, whether a casual hookup or someone you've been with for long term or whatever, you know, do they make me feel comfortable in this space?
yes. I was gonna say it's comfortable and safe is huge. Safety and comfortability is huge in being able to show up fully in the sexual experience. Because if I'm not, then I'm like this, right? So
Yeah.
I'm guarded, and I can't relax because I don't know what you might do, what I may not like. So how about So it's always great to have. I love Michelle Hope talks about having a sex date, right? When she talks about going on a date that's not sexual, but just having a conversation about what I like and what you like sexually. So then
Oh,
engage in sex, then we understand each other's boundaries, so we don't cross those boundaries, so we can have a pleasurable experience without having to break it because we've done something that is uncomfortable.
yeah, and that's actually like foreplay to me. I think that's sexy.
Yeah.
I feel especially in this, hookup culture and dating and speed dating and finding people and, you know, everything's so quick, which nothing is wrong with that if that's your pace. But understanding that not everybody is in alignment with that, and you don't have to force yourself to that narrative, that pace, that whatever. Like if you can't relax, yeah, I would be really curious and diving deep of, you know, when that started. Has that been since the beginning? is it showing up now, and kind of what that is.
Yes.
Because yeah, I at least think it should be relaxing. I don't want to feel nervous or tense either. I don't think that's enjoyable at all.
And even what you just said, and being curious, like we can be curious within ourselves, right? To kind of ask ourselves, why do we feel like we're not being able to relax, or what's coming up for us, or how our body feels. Like do a body scan, and just kind of see what's coming up. I think that's
Yeah.
all great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my battery's about to die, and I see we have like 10 minutes left. So, and Kelly, we lost her.
Yes.
Um, So I'll just do some closing remarks. I thank you, Wayne and Kelly, for doing the very much needed work. I really feel, this is the type of field maybe is going to advance and continue to advance. That's why I love it. That's why I stay serving this population and community in particular. And especially grateful for the non-monogamy piece. For one, I felt I've been that way my whole life, but didn't know what it was called.
Yeah.
So to see dedicated to normalizing that is so freeing and so destructive to these conditions and narratives that keep people literally in prison and relationships and life and pleasure. I mean, it's really good work. So I thank you for that, Wayne. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for all who showed up, just listen and ask questions. Did you want to close with anything?
No, listen, I love the work as well, and you said all the great things like that prison. I just love everything. Yeah, and I as well see the shift, the paradigm shift happening, and we're actually in it. And so,
Yeah.
I see all the people that's starting to emerge out there who are doing great work. Starting to see the material come out now, and I'm glad, I'm happy to be a part of it, and be a part of this journey, and being a part of these pioneers to help usher in this new narrative that we can,
Yeah.
create all together. So I love all this work, honestly.
Yes, I love the world that we're creating.
Yes.
Thanks for tuned in. Oh, do you want to give your Instagram handle or how people could find you?
Oh, it's my name, Wayne. And as you see, shades of non-monogamy keep popping up. That is my wife, Melissa. Everybody out there, and so yes, that is another way to get in contact with us as well. So yes.
Awesome. And I'm at Devin Deshay, or go to the last Los Angeles sex therapy website directly. Meet the team. We'll both be there waiting.
Yes. I forgot about that. Shout out to Last. Yes, come see us on Last. Like, we have some great people over there for almost anything that you can think of that you would need around sex, intimacy, relationships, therapy, help, whatever. It's all over there. It's one-stop shop. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Thanks, everyone. See y'all soon.
Bye, everybody.